Hi, this is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and this is our chart lesson for Wednesday, February the 8th. And we finally got a little movement today. Prices are basically where they started when they opened here late in the afternoon, just prior to the close. But we actually got some movement, even though we haven't moved away from opening prices that much. We had a nice trend down, and now we've had a nice reversal back up. And, I would just call this still a range type day. But there were some really good setups, and they were a lot easier to see today than they have been in the past. So it made it a little better trading day. And actually, you've gotten at least two different emails from people saying that the trading felt easier today, and they weren't sure if it was something they were doing right or whatever, but they just felt like it was an easier trading day. And I will say the reason being is that we're actually getting some movement instead of prices hanging around in a 4 or 5 point range like this all day, or even worse, a 2 or 3 point range like this. Prices broke out, and from this high to low, this is 47.50 all the way down to, it's almost a 10 point move, and now we've almost moved all the way back up to the other side. So we've had 15 or 20 points worth of movement today, and that really makes a difference rather than just seeing 3 or 4 points of movement all in a little tight area. And it makes for some much easier trading. And once you get in, prices moved on fairly quickly. You can see once prices broke out of here, they moved down real quick, and once they broke out of here, they really moved down nicely. And then when we came off this low, we moved back up pretty quick. It got a little choppy through here, but that's why I don't have any entries marked through here. The entries were down here, and as long as you kept your stop below the initial entry bar, signal bar, then you were good to go, and you could have rode this all the way up. And there were a couple of entries on the way up as well. And there was actually, I didn't mark this one. We'll get into the trades in a little bit. I didn't mark that one, but there's an entry right there as well. But let's just talk about the trades. Prices opened up right in this, let me see exactly which bar was the 8:30 open. Prices opened up right here on this low, and but we had all these overlapping bars, so there wasn't really a good long or a good short. If you went short up here, there was enough room to scalp out coming back down, but it was very risky coming off what's already kind of a strong support area. I was looking for a long and not a short, so as soon as we got this set up right here, when prices broke lower, below this double bottom, and then turned out of here and reversed, I had having an order to go long right there. Right here was a good spot. You can see that was a nice entry, and as long as you kept your stop below the entry bar or the signal bar, even the entry bar here, but definitely the signal bar, you're always going to get stopped out more often if you move your stop below the actual entry bar when it closes. But that'll keep you out of some bad trades sometimes, so sometimes it's worth it. But generally, I don't do that, but you can, there's nothing wrong with moving your stop up below the entry bar. This was the actual entry bar. This was our signal bar. I went long above the signal bar right here. And you can see, regardless of whether you had your stop here or here, you still were safe and could ride this all the way to the top. And so you had a nice entry there. Then we had this resistance up here. We had a double top here with a little small doji, so going short right there was a good entry. And here's a good example. You needed to have your stop up here above this double top, and I probably would have had it a tick or two. I probably would have started at 2 points, but I probably would have tightened it a little bit, a tick or two. I might even left it at 2 points on this since we did have a little higher high here. But generally a double top at a strong resistance area is going to be good for at least a scalp. But anyway, here's your signal bar. You enter below there, and so that means you enter on this bar. That's your entry bar. So regardless of, even if you tighten your stop right there, it still was a good trade, and you wouldn't have got stopped out, and you could have rode this all the way down to the bottom. Now, it stalled here for a minute, but look what would have happened if you would have tightened your stop to 1 tick above this bar. You would have got stopped out, and that's all that is a trap. That's a failed second entry long coming off the EMA. That trap longs, and look how quickly, once they had those people trapped, they reversed that thing down, and look at that sell-off. That was an easy trade all the way back down here to the previous low. And that's a good place to exit, or at least this was a good place to tighten your stop. Now, start tightening above each bar all the way down, and you would have gotten stopped out at the worst case scenario right here. And so that is about a 44 to about a 47. So that's a good 3-point move. A nice 3 points on a couple of contracts make you somewhere between 5 to 6 points on just a couple of contracts coming down through there. So anyway, that was a great setup right there. That was the kind we're looking for. And you see, even though there's some overlap up here, look how there's some separation here. There's separation here and here. It's not like over here where all these bars are overlapping, or even right in here where all these bars are overlapping. You can see there's a nice, it's easy to see those two legs right there, and it's easy to see this failed second entry long. Should be, because here's your new high. You pull back to the EMA, your first attempt to go higher, and then there's your second attempt. And some of you might have got trapped long right there, but if you did, you definitely want to be reversing out down here, and or at least putting your stop down here, and you wouldn't have lost more than 4 or 5 ticks right there. And but hopefully if you were smart and you did get trapped long, you reversed out and you made it all back, and then some coming down here. And then this is another great setup, because now you got your trend line off these first 2 swings. And this is a perfect touch of the trend line that reversed. You got a bearish bar. It's a second entry short. So going short right there, there's still plenty of room to scalp out before testing these lows down here again. So this is a good setup. And if you caught this when this was the trade of the day, these are the ones you wait on, and it just was off to the races. And again, if you just tightened your stop, even if you tighten it below the high of each bar all the way down, you wouldn't have got stopped out till right here. And that's about a 1340 to 44. That's a nice 4-point move. So off of these 2 entries, you could have made a nice 6 to 7 points on even a single contract today, not including your 2 scalps. So that's all you need to make money right there. 2 good trades. I was pretty much done by then. I did take this trade right here. This is my favorite setup. It's pretty much a repeat pattern of this right here. You can see it. You got your double bottom across here that got tested again. Then prices broke lower, failed. So going, and this is a doji here, but because you can get long at the very low of these, there's a couple reasons why this was a good trade. This is definitely a counter trend trade, but let me show you why this trade is not so bad. The trend line is way up here, so look how far we are away from the trend line entering down here, knowing that it's time, we're past due with 2 legs down to have a pull back to the trend line. But not only that, look how far we are away from the EMA here. The prices don't stay. That's a long time and a big move for prices to stay that far away from the EMA. So with a short trap down here off a double bottom, the odds are high you're going to get a pull back to this EMA. So we're looking to scalp out and then go to break even. But as you can see, this trade was easy to ride your runner all the way to the top of the trend line, and that was probably a good place to exit, especially when you got this reversal type bar. And you're probably thinking short here, which I was thinking short here, but it really was not a real good setup, because you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 overlapping bars by the time you got a chance to go short here. So it's better to wait on a second entry. And by the time you got your second entry short, you had to go short below another doji, and you also had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 overlapping bars. But still, this, I've seen this setup work 100 times to the short side anyway. But, the only way you could have avoided this was thinking these things. This is what you'd be thinking. All the prices are back above the EMA. We just had a huge sell-off that was really overdone, at least 2 legs down. We had this congestion down here at the low. And so that was enough reason just to wait here and wait for a better setup, because this is just a trading range. And when we had that failed second entry short, if you got trapped there, you definitely should have reversed out up here above this bar or this bar. You're definitely above here. And you could have actually taken this long, but generally when you get a break of a trend line like this, you're going to have a retest. We didn't get a retest today off of this trend down. So, that's why sometimes you just have to, you never know what's going to happen. Prices, nothing's written in stone when it comes to trading. And So you just have to be careful, and sometimes you're going to get trapped. And if you did get trapped short right here, you could have reversed out, but I wouldn't recommend reversing out with this trend line right here, because the odds are it's going to break up here and then turn back down for a retest. And just didn't get a retest. At least it hadn't happened yet. We may get it yet up here, and it may come back down. But this is not really a trend, even though this is more movement than we've had in the past, and it feels like a trend. You know, a trend usually is going to go much further than this, and this is just not really a trend. This is just a short term. If you back out and look at it, you can see it's still a kind of a trading range across here, and off with a double top up here. And this was really, if you notice, when we broke above this double top over here and had this nice rally, we never really came back and tested that, and prices almost always come back and test things, important areas. And you see, if you put this across here, that's what this was a retest to that. And now that we've retested it, we may make another leg up that's equal to this right here. And we still could get a retest off of this trend line break here, although I don't call this a major trend line. It's just not, you know, a major trend line is going to be a lot longer than that, but it's long enough to be considered a short-term trend. And even on short-term trends, you generally at least come back and test the trend line, and we didn't even get that. So the market was just strong this morning, and you know, don't argue with it. Just do it, just whatever it's doing, go with it. And we had this reversal right here, right off the trend line. If you had it drawn across these first couple of swings here, and it probably should have looked a little more like that right there. But that's kind of steep. And but you know, if you draw it off those first two swings, that's what you would have been looking at. And you can see there's a couple of touches of that trend line, and then this is the first real attempt to go lower. And so going long right here was okay. This wasn't a great setup because you had to go long above this doji, and it wasn't a super great setup, but it was still okay to take, and you could have easily scalped out of that. And but here's your better entry, because this is a second entry long, and you could have gone long here or here. And if you look, you had a new high here, so your count starts over. There's your first entry long, pull back, and that's your second entry long. So because this was a second entry long, after two legs back to the EMA, it's okay to go long above that doji, especially because it's not a real big doji, so your stop could have been a tick or two below that, and it's not a real big risk. And you see this was a nice move up. And if you held on, any runners were good all the way to this high up here, around this high. And when you started seeing resistance up here again, that's your clue to exit. And again, even if you moved your stop up one tick below each bar as it went, you wouldn't have got stopped out till right there. And that would have been a good place to exit, as you can see, because prices have never really worked higher since then. And so that generally, once you get going on a runner, if you don't go below each bar, at least wait till you get two matching lows like this, or here, or here's a little double bottom here, because once you start breaking below these double bottoms and these little matching bars and things, then prices are generally working back the other way, or at least prices are getting stronger to the opposite direction, which is down in this case, and weaker to the upside. And this has been a pretty good move, and all we really did was come back up and test this area right up in here. And then you look, if you drew your lines across the last closes up here, would have been right across there probably is where I would have had mine. And you see what happened, it turned to the tick. And even if you drew it off there or there, you still see this failed breakout, and you still would have known this was an exit type area up here, just because it's been strong resistance. But that's where I would have had mine based on the biggest number of bars touching and the last couple of closes before this downtrend started. And so that's the last closes off this double. This is really just a double top, and there's your lowest closes off that double top. And that's generally where I like to draw my line, and you can tell it was a good place because you had some other touches in there as well. And that's exactly where this thing turns. So you got to learn to spot that stuff. And always move your lines around and play with them, and just, you know, see how they look. And you can see that this area was important too, because look how once we broke above it, we failed, and look how we never could get above that. So other people are seeing this area as a strong resistance area as well. excuse me there, I get to talking and my throat gets to itching, and I've had a little minor cough that just bugs me when I get to talking a lot, and I just have not been able to get rid of it. It comes and goes, but excuse me there, and pardon me for having to pause it every few minutes here when I get to coughing. But that's pretty much it for today. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There were really this was pretty good. So there were really 6 good trades in there today. And the thing is, they all had movement. You know, once you entered, you didn't have to watch prices linger around and have you stuck in a trade. And they moved on, and you got your scalp. And in most of these cases, they didn't come back and get your runner, so your runners survived and you got more out of them, and that's what we're hoping to see. And generally, that the ES, in the past, the ES has just been a great trading market, and it's always sets up good for that kind of trading with good moves and getting some runners, but we hadn't had that lately. But there just has not been any movement lately, and even though we didn't really, by the time this market closes today, unless we get a lot of movement over the next 30 minutes, it's still going to end up pretty much right where we started the day. So it's not going to be a lot of movement, but at the same time, there was a lot of movement down and a lot of movement back up. So there's enough movement with runners being able to survive to actually make some money. So hopefully the ES is coming back. Stocks seem to be getting a little more popular now. People are getting leery of the government bonds and so forth because they're getting oversold or overbought, I guess I should say, and people are getting leery of them, and so they're looking for places to put their money. So stocks, as much as I'm scared of this market, I'm not looking to stay in it long term, but when it starts going up, which it's generally been doing, even though it's been choppy, you can see we've slowly been just going higher for the most part. So I'm leery of selling this market, and it looks like it's just going to go higher. And even though I'm leery of buying it, I got to do what the price action says. So if the market's going up, you got to buy, and if it's going down, it's making lower highs and lower lows, and the setups are there, you got to sell. So just be aware of that. And I'm going to call it a day. Hopefully you had a great trading day today, and if you didn't, a better one tomorrow. And I will see you next time. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com.